Finally, something I feel like I can talk about without seeming like a freaking wanker. I love to write. I used to do it a lot more before this YouTube thing, and I hope it's something I can end up doing in my career. I'm incredibly invested in how a story operates, what makes it good, how you approach a thing. Even writing scripts for these videos is enjoyable, even though they make my head throb all the time. Also, writing gives me deep shame and makes me hate myself. But that's healthy. That means I'm expressing my feelings in the right way instead of drinking them down the toilet. But writing is a naturally empathetic art form. It requires looking into a possibly fictional character's soul, seeing what's inside, and that activity is very satisfying to watch or to read or to write. Good writing can help you understand the world better, it can help you get over immense tragedy, or it can help you speak out when you see some sort of injustice. So much of the social change over the last hundreds of years has come from writing and pushing the brain forward. Many people like to joke that these are just movies and they don't have any impact. I just don't see it that way. I think the media that we consume is more important now than ever before. It's vital to our lives, and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. These stories, in their own little way, have pushed the world in a better direction and shown me a better way of living my life. Here are the nominees for Achievement in Writing for a Motion Picture. Payal Kapadia, All We Imagine Is Light. The way that they characterize these three women as such unique characters in their own right, but at the same time unifying them into one major story that talks about the systemic issues that come within living as a woman in India, that was incredibly powerful to me. Also, in the beginning of the film, the writer takes about 3 or 4 minutes of dialogue just to show all the different kinds of people that congregate in the city, what the city means to them, how they look at the area. It's just poetry. When the characters leave Mumbai, you get the same kind of soliloquy. It almost feels like the ending of the movie. But it's personal, I think, because the last act separates you and it changes the dynamic of the story completely. Helena Rain, Baby Girl. I don't think any film this year has handled a two-character dynamic better than this movie. It brilliantly shows the complexity of all these crises because you have themes of sexual awakening, feminism, and inappropriate power dynamics all rolled into one. How do you juggle all these things? How do you even approach a story like this? And yet it perfectly encapsulates how difficult these issues can be in real life. It doesn't isolate a single thing. It shows how all of these different concerns can impact you all the time. I don't know about y'all, but I've got about 3 to 4 different crises every day that impact my life. It's not just one. Everything weighs me down. So a film that can acknowledge that and handle that story beautifully, that has some serious power to it. Not to mention Harris Dickinson's character. I think it's one of the most interesting characters ever put to screen. He's really, really intriguing. Justin Kuritsky's Challengers. What I like most about Challengers is how tight it is, how technically perfect the story is. There's absolutely no fat, it builds so easily, it's so emotionally vulnerable. I actually can't pinpoint a single flaw in this story, and that rarely happens even among the best scripts. To have the structure play out as a tennis match is such a perfect decision. I think as many storytellers know, tennis is such a great sport for art in general because it's personal, strategic, and emotional. These three characters blend together so easily, and the story of sexual awakening feels like it comes to a natural conclusion. This is one deserving of study. Denis Villeneuve, John Spates, and Frank Herbert. Dune Part 2. I remember exactly where I was when I watched the first Dune movie. It was just a few years before that I had read the original, and I was so excited to see it on screen. I thought that movie was good. It was really good in some ways, but it wasn't the perfect adaptation I was hoping it would be. I knew, though, because I had read the book, that the entire story relies on the second part. You basically get about 300 pages in before you even know what's happening fully. I was so blown away by the adaptation of this second half. I thought it was a perfect encapsulation of what a modern retelling can do for a story, and I thought this movie was an improvement over the original work. It reminded me of Little Woman, actually, in that it adapted the material with so much reverence, but it also reformulated it to enhance the spirit of what it was going for. Chani in particular, Zendaya's character, was so much better in this film than she was in the book. She had narrative weight, and it wasn't just like she was standing there. Her incorporation made Paul's journey that much stronger, and it uplifted the rest of the story. Ryusuke Hamaguchi and Aiko Ishibashi. Evil Does Not Exist. Oh man, what a masterful screenplay. It knows exactly how much to give in a certain scene and when, operating between minutes of silence and strings of extended dialogue. Conversationally, Hamaguchi I think is one of the best to ever do it. Writing characters with such natural intelligence, you can sit and hear them talk for 3 hours at a time. They casually bring up philosophy that could shake your entire worldview and leave you silent on the trip back from the theater. I think he's probably my favorite filmmaker working today. He's just operating on a level that changes me so personally. The only issue I have, and one that I'm not even sure is an issue, is that maybe the ending was a little abrupt. Metaphorically, it's incredibly rich and powerful, and ties the film in a bow. Literally speaking, I'm not as sure. How much that matters to you probably defines how you saw this movie. Jin Sibilotis, Matisse Kaza, and Ron Diens. Flow. For this film to offer so much introspection without a single line of dialogue is monumental. But forget gimmicky half awards. Between all other films, it's one of the technically best written out there. Each character is perfectly realized with incredible personal journeys and under-the-surface adventures. You could spend hours breaking down each interaction, and you'd still find more coming back to it again. It had the privilege of stumping me on a metaphor, something I'm still peeved about, but like the late great David Lynch would say, it's about the emotional reception. As someone who loves animals and loves to study animals, this film had a personal connection to me, and it's one I could probably watch 20 times over again. Jane Schoenbrunn, I Saw the TV Glow. Can you imagine watching this movie and not knowing it's about the trans experience? I got to it a little late, so I saw the online discussion about this one and I found myself asking, I wonder how subtle the imagery is. Turns out it would take an idiot not to understand what the film is going for. That being said, it's one of the best written scripts I've ever seen, and it has some universal things that I think hit my generation particularly hard, even if you aren't trans. Getting lost in media and living through something else while forgetting about your own self-actualization is something that's incredibly personal to me, something that I struggle with as a film fan, and I've never seen a film tackle this kind of issue before. It was hypnotic, awkward, and incredibly poignant. I can't believe how much this film had to offer thematically, and I'm positive we'll have a series of movies over the next 5 years directly stealing from its concepts. Alice Rohrwacher, Carmela Covino, and Marco Pedinello. La Chimera. Love, loss, admiration, how do you interact with the beauty of the past? This film was such a beautiful meditation on trying to discover how we live our lives. It's like a coming-of-age story for 30-year-olds, when you really get a taste of what life is and you begin to doubt everything you thought you knew. It's existential, but it offers heartwarming answers that comfort you when you need it. It's a loving antithesis to nihilism, and a possible antidote if you find yourself falling into a deep state of depression. It's an incredible and whimsical journey. Kiyotaka Oshiyama and Tatsuki Fujimoto. Look Back. First of all, I love a film that's not afraid to come in at only an hour of runtime. Stories are stories, they're not supposed to be set to a certain length of time, they're supposed to go as long as the narrative requires. And in this film, it only took an hour to have me crying on my couch. The journey between these two young women was expertly explored, and so their connection felt so personal. What really caught me though was how Fujimoto tackled artistic obsession, how you can get tied to your art in an unhealthy degree, how it affects your ego, and the minutiae of what making art looks like. Megan Park, My Old Ass. This is a film I haven't nominated so much over the course of this award season because I think the technicals are good, but maybe not quite award-worthy. The writing though, and in particular the dialogue, was some of the greatest stuff I've seen this entire year. The film centers around a young woman talking with a future version of herself, and that's a very difficult thing to pull off, but the way Megan Park does it is just wonderful to see unfold. It's gentle and introspective, the conversation always goes in an interesting direction, the conflicts always add complications, there's never easy solutions, and by the end of it, man, I've gotta admit, I was just a sobbing mess. I think it's easily the best coming-of-age film of the year, and one I can take a lot from even as someone in their mid-20s. Justin Kuritzkis and William S. Burroughs. Queer. Queer was an excellent character study, and it was excellent at dissecting the wills of their two main characters and how their sexuality impacted their lives. It was conversationally brilliant, but it also looked at Craig's life with a sense of reverence and love that I really appreciated. His addiction was ever present, and his decision-making always had a sense of dread in him, as if he was fighting to want to be alive. It's a story like Baby Girl that doesn't have a simple question to ask, but more paints a complicated situation and asks how the audience feels about it. The age difference is a major factor, and yet you wonder how much of a factor it is considering the situation here. The only issue you may have with it is the third act. It's one that may feel a little abrupt and incohesive with the first two, but because it was so thematically rich, it really didn't bother me much. Brady Corbet and Mona Fastfold, The Brutalist. A movie like this, a 3.5-hour epic with the sense of detail and emotional prowess it had, marked an incredible achievement in cinematic storytelling. It flipped a typical immigrant success story on its head, showing the manhandling and economic issues that come from fleeing to this country. Adrien Brody's character was a perfect allegory for someone who sticks to their guns and tries to create something even if that thing has become bastardized, fallen off its original meaning, and no longer resonates with your life story. To handle the impact of 20 years of life, it requires this length of time to really paint the picture of what Brody's character was going through. It was brilliant all but one section possibly. There was a particularly abrupt scene that I think could have been reworked a little bit, but all in all, one of the great stories of this decade, absolutely. Man, after talking about all these movies, I've fallen in love with them all over again. It's terrible, I can't believe I have to pick one. In my head, I've narrowed it down to 5, which is terrible because that's how many I'm supposed to nominate. I'll tell you ahead, there's gonna be a lot of silver turtles handed out. But yeah, I guess the winner's gotta be... Jane Schoenbrunn. I Saw the TV Glow. Fuck, man, this was such a hard decision. This whole award show is stupid anyway. But yeah, I think the impact of this film will be seen for a long time to come. It's just so poignant, it's impossible to deny it. It's an ingenious look at an issue that I think will only become more prevalent as time goes on. Special shout out to Challengers, All We Imagine Is Light, Flow, and Dune Part 2 for being such remarkable scripts in their own right. Truly, all of them are deserving of a Golden Turtle Award, but if I start giving out 5 of those, then it's going to lose all of its meaning. They can all have the Silver Turtle. And you know what? Fuck it. La Chimera can have one too. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. I really enjoyed talking about writing. It's something that I'm personally very passionate in. I feel like it's something that I could talk about for ages. I love to write creative fiction in my personal spare time. If anyone's a writer that ends up watching this, please send me or put in the comments for everyone to read some stories that you've written. I'd love to just read what you have in store and try to create a community based off of this video that kind of centers art and we can all share what we have together. So yeah, I'm feeling lovely today. I'm tired, but I did just have a BLT. If anyone watched the last video, I've now eaten my BLT and now I'm very happy, but I could use another BLT. And so maybe instead of a BLT, I'll have like a BLT of life. I'll have a life BLT, which is like being happy, loving one another, and tomatoes. So I'm going to eat one of those life sandwiches, and then I'm going to finally make this Best Director video.